Welcome back. Yay. It's been quite a while since I've made a video, so I thought I'd do one now for multiple reasons. One, it's the 5th anniversary of the channel. I've been making videos since 2012. So yeah, it's amazing how quickly that's gone really fast, and everything that's kind of happened on YouTube since, you know, good, bad, indifferent, you know, there's a lot of good content. But yeah, I've had quite a few messages over the last couple of weeks or so from people asking if I'm okay, and yeah, I'm okay. The reason I haven't really been making many videos is that in October we had some work done on our kitchen, and when that was done we realised the electrics in the house were short, and then all the rooms had to be redone and the electrics, and I suppose, long story short, this is a different room now, so I've moved everything in here, and it was just the amount of dust and everything in the house, and it's just taken months and months to get everything done. After getting the electrics done, we went back to the kitchen and blah 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 blah. It's just taken a lot of time, and yeah, I've been a bit concerned about getting dust in the console, so I've kept everything boxed up until it's finally done. A couple of bits and pieces, but we're pretty much there. So hopefully, business as usual. It'd be nice just to get back into playing some of these old games. Yeah, I have been playing more modern stuff recently, just because it's a bit more accessible, like in the living room. And this is the one I finished yesterday, No Man's Sky. It's a weird kind of situation with this game, because I bought it pretty much on launch. I quite enjoyed it, and I thought, yeah, it's limited. It's clearly not a finished game. But I got a bit bored with it, and then when the patches came out I started playing it again, but I just found it really weird that you've got this getting towards the centre of the galaxy and building your base, and they seem like completely opposite kind of goals that you have in the game. So what I've done is I've gone back to it recently and I've tried to get to the centre of the galaxy, and yeah, that was interesting. It's probably not a huge spoiler, but I was about to write like a tweet on the Hello Games' Twitter profile, just to say, you know, thanks for making this really great game. I did enjoy it until I got to the ending, and it's like, oh right, there isn't one. It just restarts, kind of like an old arcade game. I don't know. I'd have thought they could have just put one screen of text up to say something, even if I thought the whole thing was going to be that the galaxy and the universe was a simulation, and that was the disappointing thing, because I deliberately didn't look at any spoilers, and then when I got it, it's like, oh right, because there aren't any, because there isn't an ending. Yeah. So the one I'm looking forward to playing now is Wipeout. I got this from Supermarket last week, so I tend to play games, I tend to be more like a serial gamer, that I tend to just play one game after the other. The problem is, particularly with RPGs, I get so easily distracted that I don't go back to the game, because you can get almost like intimidated by the controls being complex and you've got to learn them again, or you've got to remember where you were in the story, and not picking up games. I've done that far too many. But yeah, what have I been up to over the last few months? So I have been doing stuff, just not necessarily making videos and you know, playing retro games. So I've been getting more into like the development side of things. So the last video, if I remember correctly, was the Rise of Biko, although I think I called it the Cult of Biko at that point. So this was a collaboration I did with Dave Price, the Inflected Flinch. I don't think he's been referred to as the I got the name wrong. Infected Flinch. I nearly said Inflected, which he doesn't like because people get his name wrong. The Infected Flinch. Mr. Pumpkin. Yeah, so we had this idea last summer of doing like a text adventure. So he showed me an idea that he had. It was this like old school adventure game that was set in like a post-apocalyptic, down a coal mine in Barnsley, an abandoned coal mine. It's one near Wakefield. I went there as a kid. It's quite good. You should, if you live near there, go visit. It's good. It's called I think it's the Coal Mining Museum. You can't take batteries in. You can't take anything with a battery. You can't take like a phone or anything like that. They take it because there's gas down there. It kind of sounds a bit dangerous. But yeah, so this was a game that was on the Mega Drive, and at that point I wasn't that familiar with the hardware, so I just wanted to put images up on the screen and do some audio and sound. And I got a little FMV player working that was kind of like half the screen size and in black and white, and the game just doesn't work on real hardware. It's really weird. You'd think all Mega Drives would be the same. You know, alright, you might have a Model 1 or a Model 2 or some variation, but I've tried it on the emulator and it worked perfectly fine. I've tried it on different emulators, and then when I tried it on real hardware, I sent it out to a number of people to say, try this game. And some people say it works perfectly fine, and some people say it doesn't work at all. You get weird grey screen and like a weird behaviour until you reset the console, and even then it doesn't work properly. And on my machine I get that problem, so I'm not really sure why. I think it's because I'm using a weird screen resolution mode, so it could be some people are using SCART RGB, which is what I use, and it doesn't work. Some people are using RF, which it might work with, or it might be whatever EverDrive is being used, it's not compatible with. So that's why that's been quite delayed. But since now and then I've been thinking a bit more about doing a better FMV player, because with the Mega Drive you've got a very low colour palette, and I didn't really understand the hardware at the time on how to manage the palette, so I just kept it in black and white because it was easier. But I've been rewriting the compressor for a Dreamcast project that I've been working on, and I figured out how to do it better, which will also work on the Mega Drive. So probably that'll end up getting re-released at some point in the future, fixed hopefully, and with a different FMV player that's colour and hopefully uses more of the screen and compresses better, because you've only got 4 meg, although it's not too bad. Yeah, the other one I've been doing on the Mega Drive is Doom. Sort of. What I tried to do was this was going way back to a game that I was trying to make on the Dreamcast that was a bit like Soulstar, and it was described by a number of outlets as a racing game. It wasn't really meant to be a racing game. It was meant to be like Soulstar, but with more 3D, and it ended up looking a bit like what's it called, F-Zero on the N64, which sort of did, but it was all 3D sprite based. And the problem I've got is with the Dreamcast you've got a limited number of polygons, and I couldn't get enough polygons on the screen at a decent frame rate. And the problem you get is, if you imagine sort of, if you're doing like a mode 7, you're like, this is the screen, you've got to show your horizon up to there, and the problem is if you start from there like that, it's like Minecraft. The further away you get in the distance, you need almost like an infinite number of polygons. So once you get to about there on the screen, your polygons are so tiny that you need too many of them. And the Mode 7 effect kind of breaks down. So what I've been doing is going back and trying to do a software-based effect. So by just like saying, okay, for every pixel, work out which tile it should be on, and then reverse, like doing it backwards. So the number you've got is like X, so Y amount and then X amount, and that's the number of pixels, which would be like 320 by probably about 120-ish, because the horizon's never really there, it's always slightly lower, which is a lot easier to manage, although you've got to do it all in software, but the Dreamcast is pretty powerful for that, so it works. But what I did, kind of going back a little bit, was to try and learn more about optimizing code a lot better. I had to go at trying to make a game a bit like Doom on the Mega Drive, and I'd seen the Wolfenstein port, and I thought, okay, there must be a way of trying to go further than that and do a game like Doom. Now, clearly you can't port the Doom engine to the Mega Drive. There's 64K of work RAM, which is not enough, and you need, I think it's at least 4 meg for Doom, and it's not going to work. You know, you've got ports of Doom to the Amiga, which I've tried in the past, and they work pretty well, but you need a pretty beefy accelerator. You need at least an 030 running at about 540, 550 megahertz. And the Mega Drive's got 68,000 running at 7.5-ish, depending on what region you're in. So that's not going to work. So the idea was to try and go back to the approach that Lobotomy did for Exhumed and on the Saturn, and then later Duke Nukem and Quake, and make a new engine, but make it look a bit like the original game. It's just the same with Doom on the SNES. It's not the Doom engine, it was a new engine that was made to load in the levels. So what I've got on and done is tried to get a basic Raycaster working with like variable ceiling and floor heights, so you can do stairs and stuff. So it's moving beyond what you can do in Wolfenstein. So I'll put a couple of screenshots up. It's really, really low res, and the frame rates are dodgy. So I kind of got to the point where the Mega Drive's not really good at drawing pixels. It's not really what it's for. It's meant for shifting tiles around. So what I'm looking at doing is trying cheating it by saying, okay, you accept a bit of an inaccuracy in the textures, and you've got, say, on the screen. Actually, this screen is pretty handy. Again, for doing like 40 tiles wide and 30-ish tiles high, and then just having it like a 40 by 30 resolution screen, but instead of it being a pixel, it's a tile, which is kind of like how the video compressor works. So that's what I'm looking at doing. I think once that kind of works, I'll just put that out on the internet. I've used the shareware textures, but they're that low res you wouldn't be able to tell. But I want to, you know, put a bit more stuff in there. So I put the Doom title screen, which is quite fun with the palette, because if you look at the 32X version or even the SNES version, it doesn't have the red background. It's just the Doom character, and I thought that's really bizarre. There's enough colours to do that, and yeah, you can do it by just separating the foreground and background layer and having two images, putting the background layer as 16 colours of pretty much red, and then the foreground layer being green and blue and a bit of yellow for the Doom, you know, Doom guy, and the logo, and there's a little bit of music in there. But yeah, that was kind of a fun thing to do. That's not going to become a full version of Doom. Never say never, but no. You've just got to rebuild every level from scratch, and it's not really a proper Doom engine. It's just like Wolfenstein with a kind of hack on it. Yeah, so what else? There's a game that I'm working on, this Soulstar game. I'm going to call it Music of the Spheres, and I got the name of that by listening to the soundtrack. So I really like Soulstar, and the soundtrack to me was way ahead of its time. It's a proper orchestral soundtrack on the Mega CD, and there's a track on there called Music of the Spheres, and I thought, that's great. It's about celestial bodies and whatnot. If you look on Wikipedia, it kind of explains it. It's almost like philosophy of space, and to do with the kind of like music being based on intervals and times and blah blah blah, and space orbits being kind of like that. So it's kind of like music in a way. So I like that idea. I thought, okay, I'll call it Music of the Spheres. And I've got a few bits of soundtrack that I've had for must be 2.5 years now. Andrea, a friend of mine on YouTube and Facebook, offered to do me a soundtrack for the game, and he did me this music, and it was really good, and I just never used it. I felt terrible for not really doing anything with that. I'd used it in a few demos for like Dreamcast like engine stuff, but I want to use it in an actual game. So I've always had this in the back of my mind, and it was when I went back to the Mega Drive stuff, it kind of clicked on how to do that Mode 7 style effect at a reasonable speed on the Dreamcast. So everything's back in place now. I've done the optimization, like homework, to figure out how to make games run a lot faster, and doing more in software now. So hopefully these things should start coming together. It's really just trying to get the game around it. But yeah, I think with that, I'll kind of talk a little bit about kind of projects that I'm wanting to do, video projects. One, I want to be able to use an emulator and just show how Mega Drive games work. So you've got like tile layers and a certain number of colours and sprite layers, etc., and how the Mega CD works. And by doing a lot of development, I've found that there are emulators that are meant for like developers or, you know, ROM hackers, and you can see a lot about how the Mega Drive ticks. And I thought that'd be quite a fun video to do, to just take a couple of games and just break them down and show how they're working under the hood. But for videos themselves, this is a bit of an odd one. There have been quite a few questions, like VR questions, about quitting YouTube, and that's been a really interesting question. I mean, it's not anything I'd consider doing myself. I know I've been on a bit of a hiatus, but quitting that was never really on the table. But I think the type of videos has changed a little bit. Because I remember speaking with T-Rex Space Station, and I've seen quite a few videos recently saying that gameplay videos don't get the views. Now, this is a tricky one, because I know we kind of don't really make videos to get a load of views. That's not really the intention. It's more about a community. And I know this word kind of gets blasted, but I've kind of thought about this, and I think it is a community, because where YouTube was, it was like a fan hobbyist project, or a number of projects, and there was this group of people that would just make this, you know, talkie videos or pickup videos, or even like gameplay videos. You know, it was about the hobby. And I think YouTube's changed now. I think there's a lot more monetization of videos, and I think the style of them has changed. So when I look at my video feed, I see, I mean, I do subscribe to like news outlet channels, you know, that would talk about like films and speculate, and they are done as a business. That there's nothing wrong in that. It's just a different style of video. You know, I do watch them and I do enjoy them, but what I have noticed is the talky kind of videos and the hobbyist videos, probably the better way of describing them, have really dropped off. And I'm wondering if we're only now at the point where, if you take, say, like the Retro and Limb crowd, those guys, it's pretty much those guys with, you know, friends around that group. But I think as a whole, a lot of people have come and gone on YouTube, and I don't know whether they feel the same, that videos aren't getting views, or whether it's a case that gameplays were running out of things to cover. Because I think one problem you get is with these games that have been covered so many times now, because these are old games, there's a limited number of them. They're going to get, you know, they're going to go around the circuit a few times. And do people want to watch these anymore? I'm not sure. Because I know you do get people who are very prolific, people like Lawn Boys Post, who are still, you know, going at the same pace, making these videos in the you know, the old school style. You know, what do people call them? The master of 240p. You know, point a camera at the screen, and it's about the personality. And I think that's worked. You know, for him that works really well. But I'm not sure as a whole whether everyone's got that kind of stamina to do it. And I wonder if some people are being dissuaded, thinking that we're running out of things to talk about, perhaps, and we're running out of games to cover, and maybe there's less of a motivation. I don't know. I don't really understand why these really great channels that we've watched over the last 5-6 years have started to drop off. It's a difficult one, is that? I'd love to hear, in the comments below if you've perhaps been dissuaded from making videos. So I don't know if it's just YouTube's changed, or the Google Plus saga from a few years has put you off, or you seeing the monetization and the Patreon and that style of video and just thinking it's not for me anymore. I don't know. But yeah, I think one thing that has come out of this, I've got a set of notes, is the videos have changed. And you take videos from people like the Nostalgia Nerd and Kimball Justice, and their videos, they're trying to create a new kind of video in a way. Because I've talked about this before, that we've gone from gameplays and pickups, which are pretty easy to make, you know, very personal videos, to being something which is a bit more, I don't want to say professional, because that's not really the point of it. It's more of maybe high production values. So we've gone for these longer videos, like magazine videos, like magazine flick-throughs talking about that, which are good because there's a nice talking point. I did quite a lot myself. But I think what these guys are starting to do is make documentaries, and that's really interesting, because you're kind of going from long talkies to something perhaps a bit more structured and a bit more, yeah, like a documentary. You've got visuals as well. So it's either a person like this, you know, someone talking about a subject, or someone talking with some visuals behind, and that's really hard to do. And I think those kind of videos seem to be doing well. You know, you look at the views, people want to watch those. So I don't know if it's just as viewers we want different things now. I think the way that we consume YouTube has changed a lot, because it used to be 2012, slightly before, you'd watch these videos on a laptop or a phone. Now you can watch them on a set-top box or a PlayStation, or Xbox, whatever, or a smart TV. I think what that might have done is that might have damaged the idea of community, because you're not really going to comment. You can do it from your phone, but the question is, would you? If you're watching videos like TV, are you really going to comment on them? And then will that affect the type of videos that you want to watch? So if you're watching them maybe when you're tired in an evening, that's probably going to change. If you're using YouTube instead of regular TV, that's going to change the type of videos that you watch. So it might be that people want to watch documentaries. They don't want the social aspect. They just want to watch, an hour of content and something that they really are passionate about and want to see a good documentary on. So I don't know. Maybe that's why gameplays and the whole, comments community might be slowing down somewhat. I don't know. I think we'll see maybe over the next year. There's been a big backlash against a lot of channels that rely on YouTube for their income. They've been hurt recently because of the changes in ad revenues and the way that ads are not put on controversial content, or what's deemed controversial content, and whether that's going to be that YouTube goes back to being more like a grassroots hobbyist, or whether it's going to keep going in the way that's rivaling TV. I don't know. I think give it another 6 months, give it another year, I think we might get an answer to that one. But there have been talks about other video networks, but I can't see a lot of content creators really jumping over to that. I think what's happened is a lot of videos are being now posted on Facebook and Twitter, and that's where the conversation is, rather than on YouTube itself. But yeah, food for thought. Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking what to do next with this channel. It's been 5 years, and I've always kind of just done what I felt like doing. It was not about making content that no one would want to see. That's not what I'm doing. I wouldn't put content that no one would ever want to watch, although there's always an audience for every kind of video. But I've never really been one for doing it just to get a large number of views. So I've always kind of just made it up as I've gone along, and whatever I've been interested in doing at the time, I've just done videos. And I'm terrible for saying, okay, I've got this structured plan, I'm going to do this, this and this, and then not wanting to do that, and then not making videos. So that's a trap I want to avoid. So I've kind of gone on with this series of gameplays of Amiga conversions to the Mega Drive, and I've kind of done most of the videos I really wanted to cover at that point. There are a list of them that I've got on the shelf there that I do want to cover. It's really just having something to say about them. So I don't really want to do like reactionary videos of games I played on the Amiga a long time ago and then singing them on the Mega Drive without really playing them quite a bit before. So one was Populous. That was going to be the next one. And it's not a game I ever played on the ST and the Amiga. I have played it on the Mega Drive, but it's one of those games I've probably played it about 4 or 5 times. And if I go back to it, I completely forget how the controls work. So I just want to practice a little bit before doing those games to really do them justice, so that I can do a proper comparison. And the magazines, yeah, I've still got loads more to do. I think I was at the middle of 1994, so kind of getting into the end of the Mega Drive SNES era, beginning of the 32-bit era, so that's kind of a nice point to resume on. So I've got quite a few Saturn, PlayStation magazines. I did get a load of Games Master magazines through and Superplay, but what I wanted to do was, instead of jumping back, kind of go around to the end of time and then maybe start back at the beginning with a different magazine and do that rather than jumping around. And there's a couple of issues of Mean Machines that came through later after I'd done those earlier videos. So instead of jumping back, I thought I'd just keep going and then do a second loop if I needed to. A bit like No Man's Sky. Yeah. So for videos, I'm probably going to do more development style videos of getting more into games development. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, yeah, Monitor, that was done as well. If you haven't, you probably have seen, but with Monitor, which was a game by Dave Price, The Infected Flinch. He did almost like a Night Trap style audio game. So I'm one of the characters in there doing like an audio performance. There's probably about 5 minutes of audio in there, maybe less. So I play the chef with this weird accent. I did it really late at night and pretty quiet, and I tried to put this weird accent, and I don't know how it came out, and I thought, right, I'll stick with that. And then I had to do the second day and replicate it. That was a bit hard. But yeah, that's done really well, and it's really nice to see people in our group, our community, our whatever, move on to saying, we really enjoyed these old games, but we want to start making games. And to me, that's cool. I really, really get a lot out of that. And I think my problem is I'm really interested in the technology, and I always liked reading magazines back in the day of where people had pushed hardware to do things they couldn't do in the past. For me, that's my interest. The problem is getting from there to the game, and I've got far too many experiments and hobbies, tinkering things, and I'm terrible for not making the game. And the only one I ever really finished was Rise of Pico, which doesn't work. So I'm really happy to see that Monitor game in the last couple of weeks from Dave finally get released. So it's like, yes, there are new games with that sensibility that we all enjoyed from 20-25 years ago. So yeah, so what I want to do is just focus on two games. There's I don't want to give too much of it away. One of them's kind of a spoof game, and that's been a bit of a collaborative effort, and it's sort of Jaguar related. But I won't say any more with that. It's not a game for the Jaguar. I don't want to go there with programming the Jaguar. It's just the emulators are not that reliable, not that accurate. They're okay, but a lot of games don't work, and I just don't want to take the risk that you spend so much time developing a Jaguar game and learning all the hardware and getting the most out of it to find it just doesn't work on the real hardware. And there isn't an EverDrive, so unless you've got a Jaguar CD, it's difficult to play it. So that yeah, I'm not going there for the moment. Once an EverDrive comes out for it, which it probably will, I might look into that. But that's why I'm sticking to Dreamcast, because I know that the emulator that I've got is pretty accurate, and it means that I can write code that's close enough to a PC that I can run it. So I develop on a Linux machine, and Ubuntu is on. Well, I was going to say GNU Linux, but oh well, I don't care. I don't care. Some people get upset about that, but GNU Linux, it's Ubuntu running on a laptop, and that's the one I develop on. And I've always tried to make 3D games use there's like an OpenGL compatibility layer, and that's really good because I can test it on like the PC, and I know how the game's going to play before compiling it and trying to get it to run on the Dreamcast. So it's just quicker to develop. So the first step is get it to work on the PC. Once I'm happy with it, just check it on the emulator for the frame rate, check that it's running okay, and then check it on the real hardware, which doesn't get done very much because I trust the emulators. So yeah, so there's that. And the second one, which is also a Dreamcast one, is the Soulstar clone, called Music of the Spheres. What I'm going to do for that one is, in my head, you kind of get this, and we see it on retro games. You take a game that you enjoyed back in the day, and what you remember in your head is way more impressive than what you see now. And for me, that game's always been special over the years, and I've got that image in my head of what I remembered the game like, but it's not that game. Not quite. It's with Soulstar, you've got a Mode 7 style effect where you're going forward, Mode 7 effect where you can rotate the walker, which was never really that much fun. It was the flying ones that were good. And you've got being in space where you've got sprites, and essentially that's it. That's the entirety of the effects. But I always seem to remember like flying through asteroids and like the camera going up and down and rotating and doing all. And that's where that engine I did about a year ago came from. It was, or maybe 2 years ago, I forget. Was to try and do that. And I'm thinking, no, to try and just finish the game is to make it like Soulstar. So don't do any technology that game couldn't do. So it's Mode 7, scaled sprites, and they don't even rotate. And it's just do that. Do it in a software renderer, which means it's easy to port to a PC. I did a port actually in the week. I've got it running on a G4 PowerBook in SDL. So if it runs on that, it'll run on anything. So that was where I'm really wanting to go, and really just take that great music from Andreas and put that into the game, because the orchestral music's really important, and my mod tracking skills are not that great. It's funny for a bit of kind of like a spoof, but yeah, you want an epic audio soundtrack in there. Yeah, I think that's it really. I'm just looking at the time. We've been going 32 minutes. I thought that was a lot longer. I've changed the recording setup. I'm doing this with a phone now, which is really weird because I used to do it with a bridge camera, which never had a viewfinder on it, which was a bit weird sometimes. So I'd never know how long I was recording, and I didn't need to see myself because I'd already framed it first, but I didn't know whether the SD card had run out or the battery had run out, or I could only record for 24 minutes at a time. That was a limit on the camera, and it would do a tiny beep and I'd never hear it. So yeah, I suppose this is an experiment to see how this works on this phone, which looks all right. So yeah, rambling. So I think for this channel, I'm wanting to get back into it. Gameplays, I'll still keep doing them, but I don't think that's going to be the driving force. I think I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done, is just try and let this channel be more of it's almost like a documentary, or kind of like a vlog of things that I'm doing at the moment that I find interesting. And lately it's just been a lot more development stuff, and I'm just really wanting to focus a bit more on actually just making a retro style game, just finishing it, and getting it out there, and putting it on somewhere like Retro Unlim, because I think that group's really important in thinking about community. And I think the work that's been done on there, I think at the time I remember seeing Retro Unlim and thinking I wasn't sure whether it'd get noticed in kind of like the sea of videos that get published, that it was a very small group of people. But now I realise that group of people are really the people we see at Replay or Play Expo and Revival and places like that. It's that same group of people, and I think having that thought to just to try and group all these people together under like a single banner, now I see the importance of that. I think it's just building a community really. Yeah, it's all good. yeah, I thought it was going to be a bit more profound on that, but I don't think it came out. It's, yeah, you know, well, I think we're, as a group, I think we're shrinking a little bit as content creators, and I think it's yeah, you know, some good friendships along the way, and it's nice that we're, you know, we're still doing this 5, 6, 7, some people, you know, it's a case of people 10 years later, and the fact that, you know, YouTube's still here, and I know it's changed a little bit, but it's still here. You can still make your videos, and you know, you can still watch the videos, so I don't think that's really changed. And I think people perhaps have just got that a little bit older, you know, people have got families, they've got other commitments, and it's just, I don't know, I think we don't have as much time perhaps as we did. I think a lot of us are about the same age, so we'd have been making these YouTube videos probably late 20s, early 30s, and I think some of us now are a bit older, you know, mid 30s getting towards 40, and I think it might just be a lot harder for a lot of people to keep up the enthusiasm with, you know, making these videos. So yeah, let's see what happens in another year. It's been fun, 5 years. Right, I think I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and thanks for everyone that, you know, all the kind comments from people to say, you know, am I okay? You know, that means a lot. Just that, you know, there are people that care, and yeah, it's with the YouTube channel, I've kind of I kind of haven't really responded to comments on videos. I tend to do it whilst I'm making them, and the YouTube application hasn't really got used very much for kind of the inbox. I'm very bad at managing I think the problem is with the way that you've got the Google Plus, that little bell that comes up, there's so much stuff coming through, it's filtering, it's really hard. So the way I used to do it is, once a video's been out, over like the week, because I tended to make videos every week, is I would go back to the last one I'd made, and then I'd read through the comments, and I'd do that. So I think what may end up happening when now I make this one, I'll go back to the last one and then answer the comments from 6 months ago. But you know, I do appreciate everything that comes through. I think it's just a bit of slackness and bad management on my part, rather than, you know, not caring about that. As bad as that sounds, you know, I really enjoy the interaction, and it's, yeah, it's a two-way thing, and I've you know, it's for me to make the videos and try and you know, do my best to chat with people and keep this thing going, and you know, we all have fun. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will be back with another video that's not going to take 6 months to do.